about to do that. Let me just give that a minute to come up here. Okay, so before I have you all introduce yourselves, I do want to just say one more time, if you're not a participating member for Super Mario or Zelda, you'll need to leave and watch through the live stream link. That includes coaches and non-participating team members. Again, for the live stream audience, my name is Stacy Arzeta, and I'm on the mock trial committee, and I'm the host of Courtroom 3. So let's go ahead and have the prosecuting attorney who's doing the opening introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My name is Paige Weidman. I will be directing Mr. Alex Cifuentes, cross-examining Ms. Avery Becker, and delivering the opening statement.
And now let's have the defense opening attorney doing the opening introduce yourself.
The opening for the defense, as well as crossing Detective Jordan and directing Avery Becker.
Okay, great. And I know that you may have already given these roles, but I'm just going to go through on the list to make sure the scorers have everybody down right. Who is defense counsel number 1?
That would be me, Your Honor.
And what's your name? Sorry.
I'm Haley Erickson.
Great. And who is, defense counsel number 1?
Yes.
Okay, that's you. Okay, what about prosecution counsel number 1? Who is going first as an attorney?
My apologies, Your Honor. That'd be me, Sabin Yanez. I'll be directing Jordan Markowitz, crossing Taylor Perkins, and giving the closing argument.
Great, thank you. And who is going second for defense?
That would be me, Your Honor. Leanne Cameron. I'll be directing Taylor Perkins and crossing Kyle Kuzak.
Okay. And who is going second for the prosecution?
That is me, Your Honor. My name is Jack Nauman, and I'll be directing Kyle Kuzak and crossing Blake Van.
Great. And who will be going third as an attorney for the prosecution?
That would be me, Your Honor, Paige Weidman. Would you like me to restate the witnesses I will be?
Scorers, did you get down what witnesses, what roles she'll be doing? Or would you like her to restate? Any of the scorers? Oh, you're good. Okay, great. Thank you. And who will be going third as the attorney for the defense? Sorry, Miss.
Your Honor, I think we mixed up our order. I'll be going third, Haley Erickson. I'll be directing Blake Van Owen and crossing Alex Cifuentes.
Okay.
And yeah.
And Miss Rowe will be going first. Miss Rowe, sorry. Okay. And what about the witnesses? Who is the first prosecution witness?
Your Honor, that is me. I'm Sophia Schumann, and I will be portraying Jordan Markowitz.
Great. And who is the first defense witness?
That would be me. My name is Abigail Pritchard, and I will be portraying Avery Becker.
Great. Who is the second prosecution witness?
That's me, Esteban Reich, and I'll be portraying Kyle Kuzak.
Great. And who is the second defense witness?
That would be me, Your Honor, Mary Grace Phillips. I will be portraying Taylor Perkins.
Great. And the third prosecution witness?
That would be me. My name is Daniel Yanez, and I'm Alex Fuentes.
Great. And the third defense witness?
That will be me, Your Honor. My name is Edith May Frodel, and I will be portraying Blake Von Owen.
Great, thank you. And I know you've said this again, but just to make sure the scorers have it, who will be doing the closing for the prosecution?
I will be delivering the prosecution, Your Honor. Sabin Yanez.
And what was your name again? I'm sorry.
Sabin Yanez.
Okay, great. And who will be doing the closing for the defense?
I will be, Your Honor. My name is Haley Erickson.
Great. And let's have the timekeepers introduce themselves. The prosecution timekeeper.
Hi, my name is Hannah Harling, and I'm the timekeeper for the prosecution.
Great. And the defense timekeeper.
I am Logan Shepard, and I'm the defense timekeeper for Zelda.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for doing that. So, attorneys and witnesses, when you are speaking, you can have your camera and your camera on and be unmuted. If you are crossing, you can have your camera on while you wait to make objections or to do your cross. Everybody else should turn their camera off. And then we do have the setting on so that you won't appear on the screen while your camera is off. Scorers, you may keep your cameras on if you wish, or you can turn them off. And Judge Vigil will have his camera on. I will turn my camera off as soon as I'm done with the introductions here. So one last reminder now that only the presenting attorneys for prosecution and defense and the witnesses plus the judge should have their camera and microphone on. Everybody else keep their camera off and be muted. Timekeepers, you may come on as necessary to alert your team at the appropriate times. Again, if you're not performing attorney, witness, or timekeeper, you must exit this Zoom meeting now and watch on the live stream. Failure to do so can cause your team to be sanctioned. The round 2, courtroom 3 of the mock trial is now in session. The Honorable Judge Vicente Vigil is presiding. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, I will go ahead and swear you in. If the team members could please raise your right hands for me. And team members, do you promise that the presentation you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of this mock trial competition? All right, thank you. And for the witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition? And for the scoring panelists, could you please raise your right hands for me, please? Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of this mock trial competition? All right, thank you. At this time, the court will call case number 20 CR 3103, People of the State of Colorado versus Avery Becker. Parties are present to proceed to trial. From the prosecution first, does the prosecution have any preliminary matters before we begin?
Yes, Your Honor, we do. First, we ask that both our team and the opponent's team, at the end of each witness, the timekeepers be allowed to consult with each other about the time remaining to be as clear and concise as possible.
All right, thank you. And from the defense, any objection to that request?
No objection.
All right, the court will grant that request. Counselor, any other preliminary matters?
Yes, Your Honor. We ask that the witnesses be allowed to reference exhibit packets that they have in front of them for quick ease of reference and so that this court case flows smoothly.
All right, thank you. And from the defense, any objection to that request?
No objection.
All right, the court will grant that request as well. Counselor, anything further?
Your Honor, we ask that video evidence, when it is admitted, we or whoever admits that video evidence be allowed to play that evidence for the jury via screen share.
All right. And from the defense, any objection to that?
No objection to that either.
All right. The court will grant that request as well. Counselor, anything further?
We ask that any time that is involved in both the jury members viewing these exhibits not be counted against either side in their 25 allotted minutes.
All right. Thank you. And from the defense, do you agree with that request?
Yes.
All right. The court will grant that request as well. And then from the defense, any preliminary matters?
I believe the prosecution covered all of them, so no preliminary matters from us.
All right, thank you. Then we will go ahead and begin the proceedings from the prosecution. You may give your opening statement, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And go ahead and begin when you're ready, Counselor.
No accountability. This is a case based entirely on accountability, or the lack thereof. In her life, few people have tried to hold Miss Avery Becker accountable for her actions, and none have succeeded. Until now. Among those who attempted to hold her accountable was Mr. Mackenzie Brackman, a well-known lawyer, before he was murdered in his home on March 6th of 2020. Along with being a lawyer, Mr. Brackman coached the Colorado High School's mock trial team, leading them to victory in the regional tournament of 2020. Mr. Brackman gained the respect of his students and colleagues alike, for good reason. But he didn't have the respect of everyone. Avery Becker was a student of Mr. Brackman's for 4 years. She was always at odds with her coach. She neglected to prepare her cases for mock trial competitions, convinced that she could easily win based on her quick wit and charm. Mr. Brackman tried to hold her accountable. He tried convincing her that she wouldn't be able to slide through life without preparation and hard work. But she deflected accountability. She ignored Mr. Brackman's advice, continuously neglected her mock trial work, and on multiple occasions, she could not even be bothered to go to practice. This caused Miss Becker and Mr. Brackman to argue. For the entire mock trial team to see, they made no attempts to hide their frustrations with each other, and they left their agitations in the open. After neglecting her mock trial responsibilities for the last time, Mr. Brackman and Miss Becker began to argue again. This argument escalated further than any prior argument. It got so heated, in fact, that Mr. Brackman ended up kicking Miss Becker out of practice. And Miss Becker was furious. She stormed out of practice and took a permanent marker to the hood of Mr. Brackman's white vintage Porsche. Miss Becker then scrawled the phrase "Worst Attorney Award" for everyone to see. Mr. Becker did not allow Mr. Brackman did not allow Miss Becker back on the team after her vandalism. He held her accountable, but Miss Becker would have none of it. She went to Mr. Brackman's home, planning to vandalize that as well. But Mr. Brackman came home. Next thing you know, Mackenzie Brackman is lying face down in a pool of his own blood. Today, you will hear from Detective Jordan Markowitz, a homicide detective with the Denver Police Department, who specializes in cellular data analysis and recovery. She will demonstrate the exact path Avery Becker took to get to Mr. Brackman's home. She will also explain the chain of events leading up to the crime. Then, Kyle Kuzak, a certified crime scene reconstruction investigator, will explain her analysis of the crime and how she came to her specific conclusions. And finally, Alex Cifuentes, a former teammate of Ms. Becker's, will recount the agitation between her former coach and teammate. Mr. Cifuentes will also provide the exact plans Ms. Becker had to vandalize Mr. Brackman's home. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you are asked to weigh the evidence and testimony you are presented with today. And you will find beyond a reasonable doubt that on March 6th, 2020, Avery Becker unlawfully entered the dwelling of Mr. Brackman with the intent to commit criminal mischief. And in the course of doing so, murdered Mr. Mackenzie Brackman. The defense will try to deflect the accountability once again. They will try to let Avery Becker off the hook again. And you cannot let this happen. Avery Becker needs to be held accountable. So please, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, hold Avery Becker accountable.
That's time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Counselor. From the defense, does the defense wish to present an opening statement at this time?
Yes, the defense would like to present an opening statement, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Counselor, go ahead and proceed when you're ready. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are here today to prove the innocence of a high school student who has been falsely accused of a murder that they did not commit. We will present you with a story of anger, deceit, and lies, ones that cast Avery Becker as a villain to hide us from the real truths of this case. Ladies and gentlemen, we are trapped in a spider's web, one with many winding strings. While the proponent will set this out as a case with one clear and definitive story, you will see that there is many ways that this case could have gone. Our story begins with the members of the CHS mock trial team and their rocky relationship with their coach, Mackenzie Brackman, who belittled and steamrolled members on their team. Overall, you will see how they took this opportunity to frame Avery Becker for a crime that she did not commit. We will neither conceal nor overlook any evidence, and we will present you with the facts as they are and allow you to come to appropriate conclusions yourself. The evidence will show that Avery Becker did not murder Mackenzie Brackman and that she was away from the scene of the crime and that her alibi checks out. It will show the many ways that the murder could have been committed and that there is no way to know without a reasonable doubt who committed the crime. First, you will hear from Avery Becker, a motivated high school student who has been doing mock trial for many years, that she was away looking for her phone with her friend Taylor, and that there was no feasible way for her to have committed the crime, and many other people with more motive than her to murder Coach Brackman. Then you will see Taylor, a member of the mock trial team and a close friend to Avery Becker's. You'll hear that Avery and Taylor were so close that they felt no need to keep anything from one another, and that Taylor's testimony is completely forthcoming. You will hear that Avery, after accidentally marking Brackman's car with a permanent marker, felt horrible about what she did and did everything she could to rectify it. And from that, you will see that she had no ability to commit such a crime guilt-free, and that she would have never murdered him in the first place thanks to her mock trial knowledge on court systems and consequences. Finally, you will gain information from Blake Owen, a private civilian investigator who inspected the scene of the crime. You will hear from him of the detective's findings. His testimony describes how the detectives followed the easy conclusions rather than closely looking at the facts, and that they failed to investigate the full story. You will also have the opportunity to hear from the proponent, who will try to convince the jury that all the evidence clearly shows Avery Becker was the one at the scene of the crime and committed the murder. They will try to convince you that Avery Becker had motive and means to kill Brackman, and that she was the only one that could have reasonably done so. And in our defense, you will see that Avery had none of these things, neither motive nor accessibility, and that she was in no way the only suspect that could have done it. You will receive testimony from Kyle Kuzak, a civilian contractor who claims to have put together a timeline and will condemn Avery for the murder. You will also see that he was not a real police officer, that he lost evidence, ignored facts, and jumped to conclusions. Alex Cifuentes will give testimony as a member of the mock trial team, who continually claims that he and Avery Becker were friends despite their testimony that they were not. You will notice that Alex and Avery were not in fact friends, whether they were particularly hostile or not, and that Avery would never confide in Alex. You will see that Alex manipulated the truth and falsified evidence against Becker. You will also hear from Jordan Markowitz, an officer who, after examining the crime scene, will testify that Avery Becker was the one that killed Coach Brackman. the phone signals would point to Becker going to the scene of the crime, even though she testified against having her phone at all during the time of the crime. Evidence was destroyed, and that upon Alex Cifuentes not having his phone at the interrogation allowed him to continue without it, and has no way of knowing whether the screenshots given to him were legitimate or faked. He followed the easy and obvious path without traveling with the facts to discover the real truths of the case. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if you are not convinced by the evidence that Avery Becker committed the crime without a shadow of a doubt, that she might have been away from the crime, that she might not have had adequate motive to commit the crime, then you must acquit her. We do not have to show that these conditions were undoubtedly true, rather that is beyond a reasonable doubt, and that there is greater than a 50% chance that any of these claims are true. In this trial, the evidence will show you that this is the case. If you find that it is more likely than not that any of these conditions are true, then you must find my client innocent. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Counselor. And to the prosecution, please call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The people call Detective Jordan Markowitz to the stand.
Thank you. Detective, can you please raise your right hand for me, please? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you, Detective. Counselor, go ahead and begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Detective Markowitz. Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
My name is Jordan Markowitz, Markowitz.
Miss Markowitz, where do you work?
I work for the Denver Police Department.
What specifically do you do at the Denver Police Department?
I am a homicide detective.
How long have you worked with the DPD?
About 13 years, and about 7 of those I've been a detective.
As a part of your career, have you received any specialized training?
I have. I am certified from the American Academy of Law Enforcement in both cell phone technology and forensic data recovery.
Now, what skills exactly did this training give you?
I learned how to use the Celebrite system in order to download records off of a cell phone and download cellular call detail records.
And how often do you use this training?
I've used it quite a few times in over 50 cases.
Thank you. At this time, the prosecution moved to enter Detective Jordan Markowitz as an expert in crime scene investigation, cell phone technology, and forensic data recovery.
All right, thank you. From the defense, any response?
No response, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. The court will accept the detective as an expert in the proffered fields. Counselor, go ahead and proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, I'd like to talk about the initial investigation of this case. How did you come to be involved in this current case?
I received a call on March 6th of 2020, and I was assigned to this case.
Generally, what kind of cases do you investigate?
Usually homicide cases, so a case like this.
Do you investigate your crime scenes personally?
I do.
Did you investigate this crime scene personally?
I did. I was there about probably an hour after.
Where was the crime scene?
It was in Denver, 444 South Flower Street.
Okay. Were you able to find out what day the murder took place?
Yes, on March 6th of 2020.
Okay. And what time did you arrive at the crime scene?
I probably arrived there about 2:20 in the afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Was anyone there when you got there?
Yes, there was quite a few people. There was already officers and who had secured the scene for me.
Okay. How long did it take you to identify the victim?
Not very long. I did not recognize him when I first saw him at the scene, but as soon as I got an ID, I knew who it was.
And who was the victim?
Mackenzie Brackman. He was a practicing lawyer.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'd like to continue with your investigation. I'd like you to walk me through the way you investigated the scene. When you got to the residence, what did you notice first?
Well, first I noticed that the front door was ajar and that there was a person laying down in the front hallway.
Did you notice any wounds on the victim's body?
Yes, Mr. Brackman had a wound in his top left shoulder. Yeah.
You said there was a stab wound in the body's back. Did you see a knife or a blade anywhere near the body?
I did. It was directly next to the body laying on the floor.
Would you be able to recognize a picture of of the body if it was shown to you?
Yes, I would be.
Your Honor, at this time, I ask that the witness be allowed to flip to Exhibit 1. Detective Markowitz, could you please identify Exhibit 1?
Yes, this is the scene. It is immediately a photograph taken from outside of the home looking into the front hallway.
All right, thank you. Could you please turn to Exhibit 2? What exactly is going on in Exhibit 2?
This is the same person, Mackenzie Brackman, but this time the photographer is inside of the home looking directly at the stab wound.
Okay. I'd like you to turn to what has been previously marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 3. What exactly is going on in Exhibit 3?
It is the same person once again, but this time you can more clearly identify the wound inside his t-shirt and his left shoulder.
And finally, I'd like you to turn to what has been previously been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 4. What exactly is in Exhibit 4?
Once again, just a different angle to give you a bit more perspective about the scene. And it's the same stab wound, but it gives you more of an image of the pool of blood around it and what the wound itself looked like.
Are these fair and accurate representations of the crime scene as you saw it on March 6th?
Yes, they are.
Are you the custodian of these pictures?
Yes, I am.
Your Honor, at this time, the people move to enter Exhibits 1 through 4 into evidence.
1 through 4, from the defense, any response?
No objections, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. The court will accept People's Exhibits 1, 2, 3, and 4 into evidence. Counselor, go ahead and proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I'd like to move to the rest of your investigation of the crime scene. Did you ever figure out who owned the house?
Yes, Mr. Brackman did.
And how did you find that out?
Just looking at different records and the ID of Mr. Brackman.
Did the home have any security devices?
Yes, it did. It had 3 different Ring doorbell cameras.
And where were the cameras located?
There was one on the front door facing out. And you can see it in Exhibit 1. And as well, there was one on the south side of the home facing a side gate. And then finally one in the back of the home facing the back door to see who can enter and exit.
Were any doors or windows broken?
No, only the front and back door were open.
Okay, I'd like to move on. How did you continue your investigation of the crime scene?
I walked around to the back and I entered a kitchen, which was in slight disarray, and there was a broken plate and an open knife drawer.
Would you be able to recognize a picture of the kitchen and dining room area if it was shown to you?
Yes, I would be able to.
Could you please turn to Exhibit 9? Could you please identify what is in Exhibit 9?
Yes, this is the kitchen area that I walked into where the broken plate is on the ground.
Okay, thank you. Your Honor, excuse me. Is this a fair and accurate representation of the crime scene as you saw it on March 6th?
Yes, it is.
All right, Your Honor, at this time, the people move to enter what has been previously been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 9 into evidence.
Thank you. Any objection to People's 9?
No objections, Your Honor.
All right, the court will admit into evidence People's Exhibit 9.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did you notice anything else askew in the kitchen?
Yes, the knife drawer as well as a knife block, which was missing a knife.
Okay. Did you notice any blood in the kitchen or near the entryway?
Yes, I did. There was quite a few blood splatters, both in the kitchen and in the hallway leading up to where Mr. Brackman's body was.
Did you or your crime team take pictures of these blood droplets?
Yes, my crime team did, but they were corrupted, so we could not retrieve them.
Did your team attempt to recover those photographs?
Yes, we did.
Okay, thank you. Did you find blood spatter anywhere else in the house besides the kitchen?
Yes, in the front hallway near Mr. Brackman, but those photos were also corrupted.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to return to the Ring doorbells. How did you end up obtaining these videos?
I was able to sign into Mr. Brackman's account and download the Ring doorbell footage that he had from that day, because he had an account which keeps the footage for multiple days afterwards.
Would you be able to identify these videos if they were shown to you?
Yes, I would be.
Okay. All right. Would you please identify what has been previously marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 10?
Yes, this is Exhibit 10, and this is one of the first videos of the intruder walking up to Mr. Brackman's door.
Could you please identify what has been previously been marked as Exhibit 11?
Yes, Exhibit 11 is the same intruder, but he was not able to get through the door, so he went around to the side gate, and this video is him opening and closing it and going through.
Could you please identify what has been previously been marked as Exhibit 12?
Yes, this video is the next video about a few seconds later with the intruder going into Mr. Brackman's home through the back door.
And could you finally identify Exhibit 13?
Yes, this is the same person. After going through Mr. Brackman's home, he runs out of the front door and away.
Your Honor, permission to enter Exhibits 10 through 13 into evidence.
Any objection from the defense?
Objections, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. The court will admit peoples 10, 11, and 12, and 13 into evidence. Counselor, go ahead.
Now, Detective Markowitz, I'm going to share these videos. Could you please, for the jury's sake, please identify what's going on in each one like you described? All right, Detective Markowitz, what exactly is this exhibit here?
So this exhibit is the footage from the front door. The intruder, as you can see, starts walking up to the door, tries to enter, rings the doorbell, but is unable to get in. And so he turns around and moves towards the side gate instead.
Okay. Could you please describe this exhibit?
Yes, this is the same person, as you'll see in a second. He is opening the side gate, entering, and then he is walking towards the back door, which is the next video that we will see.
Okay.
So this is the back door. You can see it's a sliding door. He enters the kitchen and living room area and closes the door behind him.
And then this final exhibit?
This final one is from a few minutes later. It is the intruder entering and exiting the house, and running away.
Okay, thank you. All right. I would like to, I'd like to move on to the final bits of your investigation of the crime scene. Did you end up searching the rest of the house?
Yes, I did, but I didn't find anything else out of the ordinary.
Okay. Now, as a part of your investigative process, did you follow up with any leads on the case?
Yes, I did. I reached out to multiple high school students at the Colorado High School where Mr. Brackman was a mock trial coach.
And how did you get the contact information of these students?
I was able to attain it through the mock trial program.
Okay. Did any break or lead come from those follow-ups?
Yes, I reached out to one student named Alex Cifuentes, who I was able to schedule an interview with.
Okay. And what exactly did Alex Cifuentes tell you?
He told me about a student named Avery Becker, and ended up sending me some screenshots from a conversation between Avery Becker and Alex Cifuentes.
And what did Avery Becker say to Alex Cifuentes?
In these screenshots, he threatened to defile Mr. Brackman's home and repay back or get revenge for an incident that happened in mock trial where he got kicked off the team.
Okay, thank you. Did you end up following up with a defendant today?
No, I did not. I attempted to talk to Mr. or Mrs. Avery Becker, but her lawyer said that she was not going to talk to me at the time.
Did your investigation into Avery Becker stop there?
No, it did not. I ended up getting a warrant to search Miss Avery Becker's phone, but I was unable to do that as well because due to the phone being allegedly lost.
Okay, thank you. Now, I'd like to talk in detail about cell phone tracking and how you use that in this case. So what exactly is cell phone data retrieval?
Yes, so there's a few different things that we can do with cell phone technology. First is just downloading the actual data off of the phone. And second is something called the call detail records, which are records of what any contact that goes from the phone to the phone or from the phone out into the world. And it tracks which tower the phone is connected to at any given time.
Okay. Did you conduct a cell data analysis for Avery Becker's phone?
Yes, I did.
And what did that tell you?
I found that Avery Becker's phone left his home around 12:50 on the day of the crime and ended up at around Mr. Brackman's home at about 1:05 p.m. that day, and then left the home later. This was all just phone calls being incoming instead of anything going out of the phone.
I'd like to turn your attention to exhibit.
Give me just a moment. From the defense objection, could you restate that, please? I was having trouble hearing you.
Objection, Your Honor, on 611, assumes fact, not in evidence.
All right, thank you. Counselor from the prosecution, any response to that objection?
Your Honor, may I ask what facts did we offer that have not been admitted into evidence yet?
From the defense, can you clarify the question, the specific question that you were answering? There's a little bit of a lag here on my end, so I want to make sure that we're specific as to the question.
Yes, this was an objection to what the cell phone towers had told the detective.
All right, thank you. From the prosecution, response, please.
Your Honor, the Detective Markowitz has already testified as to her great expertise with cell phone towers and cell phone data analysis, so I feel like it's perfectly within her purview to talk about these things.
All right, thank you. And from the defense, any reply to that?
Yes, but the evidence that you were talking about is specific enough that I believe that it would require to have something in evidence to prove it.
All right, thank you. The court will overrule the objection. Counselor, go ahead and proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you be able to identify Exhibit 15?
Yes, these are, Exhibit 15 is a diagram that I put together myself from the call detail records I received of Avery Becker's phone of just what towers and what times on March 6th that the Avery Becker's phone was connected to.
Okay, thank you. At this time, Your Honor, the people move to enter what has been previously been marked as Exhibit 15 into evidence.
15, all right, thank you. Any objection from the defense?
No objections, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. The court will admit People's 15 into evidence.
Now, if I could get the if I could get the jury to briefly view Exhibit 15. Detective Markowitz, what are these red cones that appear on the map?
So each of these are 120 degrees of what the tower covers. And each of these red spots are where the tower covers and how far. And as you can see at different times in the day is where Mrs. Becker's phone connected to throughout the afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Now, I'd like to turn your attention to Exhibit 16. Could you please identify what is special about Exhibit 16?
Yeah, so this is the exact same diagram that I put together. This is just a route that Ms. Becker may have taken on that day. It is just a more explanation of where Mrs. Becker's phone did go that day.
Thank you. Your Honor, at this time, the people move to enter what has been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 16 into evidence.
16. Any objection to People 16?
No objections, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. The court will admit People 16 into evidence. Counselor, go ahead and continue.
Detective Markowitz, what is your opinion on the ultimate issue of this case?
I believe that Avery Becker on March 6th took her phone from her home in the top tower and drove it down to Mr. Brackman's home, where she is viewed in the video as the intruder, and at 1 p.m. was there and killed Mr. Brackman inside his home after attempting to vandalize it, and then left about 1:17 p.m.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination, please.
Thank you. Can I just begin?
Yes, go ahead, Counselor, whenever you're ready.
What is your relationship with the case of Mackenzie Brackman's death?
I was the first detective on the scene, and so I was the one who received the most evidence.
How long have you been a detective?
For about 7 years.
Would you please turn to Exhibit 20?
Yes.
Can you identify what this exhibit is?
Sorry. Yes, this is the report from Blake Van Owen, who is another reporter, investigator.
Yes, and would you say that this is a fair and accurate representation of that report?
I wouldn't know. It's not my report.
Your Honor, I move that this would be moved into evidence.
Defense 20, from the prosecution, any objection to defense 20?
Yes, Your Honor. Outside the scope of the witness's knowledge, I believe that this is far more applicable under Blake Van Owen's testimony than Detective Markowitz's.
All right, thank you. And any reply to that? Or any response?
Yes,
objection?
yes, by reading the report that is given and based on the detective's years of experience, I believe that she will be able to understand the report and it will have relevance to the rest of the questioning.
All right, thank you. For the purposes of this competition, I am going to overrule the objection and allow that exhibit into evidence, and will admit defense 20. So, Counselor, go ahead and proceed.
In this report, the private investigator states that he believes the victim was likely stabbed from behind when he was unaware. Is this possible?
Yes, it is possible, but I don't believe that's true, in my expert opinion.
If it was possible, could there be an entirely different outcome to the case?
I suppose so, yes.
Moving on, you state that Brackman's history could indicate an ex-client might have committed the crime, correct?
Yes.
One like Blair?
I do not know of any ex-clients, but possibly yes.
Okay. When Alex came to the police department, did he have his phone on him?
Yes. Or no, he did not. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Is that unusual?
Yes, it was.
So is there any actual evidence that Avery sent the screenshots in question?
Yes, because Alex Cifuentes told me that those were the screenshots.
But is there any actual proof that he sent those texts?
Yes, that they were the screenshots that I received.
Is it possible that the screenshots were doctored?
Yes, it is.
The CDR showed that there are many calls going to Avery Becker's phone on the day of the murder, correct?
Yes.
And that would correlate with Perkins calling Becker to look for her cell phone, correct?
Exactly.
In the CDRs, it shows that Becker's cell phone is allegedly traveling towards Brackman home, correct?
Yes.
And does this necessarily mean that it was Avery who was carrying her phone?
Not necessarily, but it seems more than likely.
No further question, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. From the prosecution, any redirect examination?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Detective, you are free to leave and go about your day. Thank you. The prosecution will call their next witness, please. Thank you.
The prosecution calls Kyle Kuzak to the stand. And could I have a time check, please?
Sure. Since you're beginning, I believe you're at 25 minutes. Is that correct, timekeeper?
Your Honor, that is incorrect. It's 25 minutes for direct for all witnesses. So the
For all
prosecution has 7 minutes and 14 seconds left.
Okay, thank you, timekeeper. I appreciate that clarification.
And on the
Thank you.
interest of the defense, they have 16 minutes and 49 seconds left.
All right, thank you, timekeeper. I appreciate that clarification. To the witness, can you please raise your right hand for me, please? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
All right, thank you. Counselor, go ahead and begin when you're ready. Thank you.
Please state your name and spell your last for the court record.
Kyle Kuzak, Kuzak.
What do you do for a living?
I am a certified crime scene reconstruction investigator employed by the City of Denver Police Department.
Are you a police officer?
No, I'm a civilian employee.
You mentioned you're certified. Can you tell the jury a little bit about your certification?
I earned my certification through the Colorado Bureau of Investigation.
Second,
How long?
I don't see defense attorney on for this witness. I just want to make sure that they are in fact on the line, just so in case they're having any technical issues. Okay, I do see the defense attorney on the line. Thank you. And I'm sorry, Counselor, go ahead, and the timekeepers will exclude that break from the. Go ahead, Counselor.
Thank you, Your Honor. How long have you worked as a crime scene reconstructor?
I've been doing this for 19 years, 3 of which I've been with the City of Denver.
In those 19 years, what has your work encompassed?
I've investigated home invasions, burglaries, domestic violence, fatal accidents, homicide, and armed robberies.
Your Honor, at this time, I move the court to recognize Kyle Kuzak as an expert in crime scene reconstruction.
All right, thank you. From the defense, any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. The court will accept the witness as an expert in the proffered fields. Counselor, go ahead and continue.
Thank you. Were you involved in the investigation that took place at 444 South Flower Street?
Yes, I investigated the scene and visited the actual house.
Did anyone visit the scene before you?
Yeah, the initial investigation had already begun, so I came in after it had been processed by other members of the crime lab.
And how did you begin your own investigation?
Well, I used police reports that had already been done, and then I reviewed the ring security cameras, the photographs that other people had used, and actually visited the scene itself.
How did you begin your own investigation?
I made a tracking spreadsheet of the witnesses to summarize the key points and the suspects, the physical evidence, and and I made a flowchart to document the timeline.
Do you have a copy of these spreadsheets, flowcharts, and timelines?
Yes.
Do you have a copy of your evidence book?
Yes.
I would now ask the court and opposing counsel to direct their attention to what has been previously marked as Exhibit 17.
17?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Ms. Kuzak, could you also direct your attention to Exhibit 17?
Yeah.
Do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes, I do.
Can you share with the jury what this exhibit shows?
This is the witness information tracking sheet, the evidence tracking sheet, and the flowchart of my timeline that I created.
Do you regularly use documents like these as a part of your job?
Yes.
Were these documents created at or around the time of the crime?
They were.
And is this a fair and accurate depiction of the spreadsheets and timeline?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, permission to enter Exhibit 17 into evidence?
Any response from the defense?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, the court will admit people 17 into evidence. Go ahead and proceed.
Your Honor, I now ask that the jury direct their attention to Exhibit 17.
All right, thank you.
Could you tell the jury why you made these visual aids?
I used them to organize my thoughts and explain it to other experts, explain it to attorneys and to juries.
Thank you. You mentioned you reviewed videos for this case. How many videos were there?
There were 4 ring security camera videos.
Can you give the jury a quick summary of what you saw in these videos?
Sure. It was a pretty clear progression, through the property. The same individual came in all 4 videos, the first one at the front door, and then turned around, went to the back gate in the second video, the back door in the third video, and then we're seen leaving the property through the front door in the 4th video.
And you investigated the interior of the house. What did you, or the exterior of the house, sorry. What did you look for?
Any helpful evidence left behind, like DNA evidence?
Was there any helpful evidence left behind?
No.
And did you also investigate the interior of the house?
Yes.
What did you notice inside the residence?
Well, the first thing I noticed was the dead body. The corpse was in a pool of blood at the front of the house.
Are there any photographs of this corpse?
Yes.
Could you explain what conclusions you can draw from these pictures?
Well, it shows where Mr. Brackman ultimately passed out and eventually died from removing the knife that was stopping the bleeding.
Did you look at any other parts of the house?
Yes, the back door.
What prompted you to look at the back door?
Well, there were scuff marks from the back door.
And based on your expertise, how did these scuff marks get there?
I think there was a struggle between the victim and the perpetrator.
Other than the scuff marks, did you find anything else relevant to the case?
There was a broken plate on the floor of the kitchen.
Based on your expertise, what happened to the plate?
Well, the plate was most likely knocked to the ground when the 2 individuals struggled, as I'd mentioned before, and that suggests that the struggle moved from the back door to the kitchen table.
Were there any other relevant photos in this case?
Yes, there's a photo of an open knife drawer and of a knife block that had one missing knife, appeared to have one missing knife.
I would now ask that the court and opposing counsel direct their attention to Exhibit 8.
All right, thank you.
Can you turn, Miss Cusack, can you turn to what has been previously marked as Exhibit 8 in your evidence book?
Yes.
You recognize this picture?
Yes, I do.
Can you share with the jury what this picture shows?
This is a knife block in Mr. Brackman's kitchen. It apparently has one knife missing from it.
And were these pictures taken at or around the time of the crime?
Yes.
Your Honor, permission to enter Exhibit 8 into evidence?
Thank you. Any objection to People's 8?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, the court will admit People's 8 into evidence.
Your Honor, I now ask that the jury direct their attention to Exhibit 8 as well as what was previously entered as Exhibit 6. Is there any valuable evidence you can gain from these pictures?
Yes, the bloody knife is likely the one used to murder Mr. Brackman.
That's time.
All right, thank you. Ms. Azerda, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I got a quick point of clarification as to how the time works. So given that the prosecution has used their 25 minutes, then would we not have a third witness? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, if they've used their time, then they wouldn't have any time to do the third witness.
Okay, all right, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was clear. All right, any cross-examination, please?
Yes, Your Honor. I have a cross-examination for the witness.
All right, go ahead and proceed when you're ready.
Miss Cusack, you say in your statement that you are actually not a police officer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you also say in your statement that a lot of digital evidence was lost or corrupted. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a fairly common thing to happen, but yes.
And you had access to this information before it was lost.
Yes,
You were trusted with the information,
I suppose so.
but you couldn't stop it from being corrupted.
No,
It also states in your testimony that you were not able to recreate the scene with full accuracy.
I mean, yes, sure.
So you allowed information to be corrupted, and you were not able to recreate the crime scene with full accuracy.
Well, there's no way to.
Just a yes or no answer will be fine.
Okay. Yes, that's correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. And then to the timekeepers, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding you correctly. That was the entirety of that time stoppage was the entirety of the 25-minute prosecution time. Am I understanding that right?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution no longer has any time.
All right, thank you. All right, then there is no opportunity for redirect. And Ms. Azurda, unless I am incorrect, I believe then by rules of the competition, the prosecution has rested. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor. I was just clarifying that with my fellow committee members, and that is correct. They're out of time. If by agreement or you decided to allow them to do their third witness, they could, but they obviously would get marked off or get no points for that witness.
And part of the scoring for each attorney is their cross-examination. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Given that, I am going to allow the prosecution to present their third witness so that the defense can have an opportunity to cross-examine that witness and make sure that they have an opportunity to be scored as to that, since I believe they still have time remaining. So if the prosecution will call their next witness, please. Thank you.
The people called to the stand, Mr. Alex Cifuentes.
All right, thank you. And to the witness, can you please raise your right hand for me? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. Counselor, go ahead and proceed when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Cifuentes, please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Alex Cifuentes, Sifuentes.
Mr. Cifuentes, do you and Avery Becker know each other?
Yeah, we were both members of the mock trial team at CHS.
And were you friends?
Oh yeah, we were best friends, for sure.
And then what was your relationship with Mr. Mackenzie Brackman?
Oh yeah, he was our coach for mock trial.
During your time in mock trial, were you able to observe the relationship between Avery Becker and Mr. Brackman?
Yes, I got 3 years of that.
Could you describe their relationship?
Yeah, it was hard to watch. It was always Avery and Coach Brackman fighting over just the
Objection, Your Honor, to speculation.
All right, thank you. And, Counselor, any response to the speculation objection?
Yes, Your Honor. This is not speculation because, as the witness has testified, Mr. Brackman and Ms. Becker argued during practice, and this is practice that the witness was in attendance for.
All right, thank you. And from the defense, any reply?
Yes, Your Honor. The witness can testify that they argued, but cannot testify as to their personal relationship.
Your Honor.
The court will overrule the objection. Counselor, go ahead and proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Cifuentes, do you mind if I re-ask that question?
Sure.
Could you describe the relationship between Ms. Becker and Mr. Brackman?
Yeah, they hated each other. Simple as that.
And why was there this hatred?
Well, Coach Brackman was more of a professional, and Avery was a I'm good, and so I can do whatever I want type. And Coach Brackman was always expecting things from Avery that Avery wouldn't give. And because of it, they would always get into arguments about it.
All right. Were you personally frustrated with Miss Becker?
Yeah, I think the entire team and myself included, that we kind of all gave up a vibe of just why Avery, just why are you doing this, as well as we're all nervous for what's about to happen in mock trial.
All right. Did their relationship ever escalate beyond arguing?
Yes, it did many times, but one particular time it got to the point where Avery was drawing all over Coach's car.
Yes. And after this vandalism, was Avery Becker still on the team?
No, Coach Bracken, when he saw the drawings, he exploded and kicked her right off the team instantly.
All right. After Miss Becker was kicked off the team, did she try to contact you?
Yeah, Avery was always texting me and other members of the team asking us to speak on her behalf to Coach Brackman, asking for forgiveness and asking to be let back on the team.
And did Mr. Brackman let her back on the team?
Yeah, that was a very hard and stern no.
All right. You said the defendant texted you. What did she send?
Oh yeah, she originally sent, hey, can you something along the lines of, hey, can you ask Coach let me back on the team? And I of course responded how Coach Brackman responded, saying no. And Avery,
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Thank you. And Counselor, any response to the hearsay objection?
Yes, Your Honor. This is a statement from the defendant, which is exempt from the hearsay rule.
All right, thank you. And from the defense, any reply?
No reply.
All right, thank you. The court will overrule the objection. Counselor, go ahead and proceed.
All right, Mr. Cifuentes, would you continue with describing the text messages?
yeah. So after I gave Avery the response that Coach Brackman was definitely saying no to letting her back on the team, Avery texted me something on the lines of, well, if he doesn't like what I did to his car, I'm going to go to his house and tear up the joint. So I of course responded saying, that's probably not the best way to go about that, but you know.
All right, Your Honor, I would like to direct both your attention as well as opposing counsel's to what has been previously been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 14 in your exhibit packet.
14, all right, thank you. Go ahead and proceed, Counselor.
Mr. Cifuentes, do you have your exhibit packet in front of you?
Yep.
All right, please refer to what has been previously been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 14.
I got it right here.
Mr. Cifuentes, could you describe the contents of this photo?
Yeah, this photo is a screenshot I took of the text messages that I just described between Avery and I sent this to a detective.
All right, and is this a fair and accurate representation of the screenshots between you and Avery Becker?
Let me take a look. Yeah, they are.
And just to clarify, did you manipulate these screenshots in any way?
No, absolutely not.
Your Honor, I move to enter what has been previously marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 14 into evidence.
Thank you. From the defense, any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. The court will admit Peoples 14 into evidence. Go ahead and proceed, counsel.
I would like to reiterate your relationship with Ms. Becker now. Were you and Avery Becker rivals?
No, like I said before, we were best friends.
And are you testifying in order to get Avery Becker in trouble?
No, absolutely not. I'm a firm believer of the truth, and no matter who that hurts, it's got to come out.
All right. And one last thing. What roles did Ms. Becker play in mock trial?
Well, from year to year, it would always change, but sometimes she was a witness or an attorney. But I could tell you she was good. She was good as a witness. She could make up things on the fly whenever situation like that would come up. She was a great lawyer. She got some awards for that in regionals. But yeah, she was really good at just making things up on the fly.
And were the things she made up believable?
Oh yeah, sometimes it wasn't always accurate, but it was definitely believable. She had that tone that made it believable.
Thank you, Mr. Cifuentes. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination from the defense, please.
Yes, Your Honor.
And go
So,
ahead and proceed when you're ready.
oh, thank you. Mr. Cifuentes, to just clarify for the jury, you believe that Avery Becker murdered your coach, Mackenzie Breckman, correct?
Yes.
Yet you and Avery were good friends. You said best friends even.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you like Avery very much?
Yes, I did. And that's why that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now, doing what's best for Avery and letting the truth be told.
And just to follow that, Avery received many awards in mock trial, did she not?
Yes.
And just to give the floor to you, how did this make you feel?
Personally, I thought she didn't deserve it. There was a lot of, like I said, there was a lot of
Objection, relevance.
Counsel, any response?
Yes, Your Honor. This goes to show that Alex Cifuentes maybe did not have the relationship with Avery Becker that he claims to, and furthermore has motive to frame Avery Becker for the crime.
I agree that it's relevant to motive and bias. The court will overrule the objection. Counselor, go ahead and proceed.
Thank you. So just to go back a bit, Avery received many awards, So I guess just to clarify, how did it make you feel that she received awards?
It felt kind of gut wrenching, and I think a lot of the teammates thought that. But like I said, she was always making stuff up and never came prepared for class and for practice. And so it's kind of like we all spent the time putting in the effort, figuring out mock trial. She would show up last second and get all the awards for it. So it kind of annoyed all of us.
Thank you. And to clarify, you didn't she received these awards.
Yeah.
So along those lines, were you equally as unhappy when she received the Best Attorney Award most recently?
Yes, like I said, she would show up, not do the work, and get the reward. And this, of course, made all of us mad, especially Coach Brackman.
And to keep the narrative going, after she received this award, that is when she wrote on Mr. Brackman's car, correct?
It was after the award, and it was after Coach Brackman confronted her about it, saying what we were all thinking, that she didn't deserve it.
And following this, Avery was dismissed from the mock trial team.
Yeah.
And this kept your team from going to the state competition?
Yeah, but at the end of it all, it didn't matter because state was canceled.
Do you think that the team was better or worse off without Avery on it?
That's up and down. I think for sure we were better with her abilities on the team, but in terms of her divisiveness over the rest of the team and coach, in that aspect, I wouldn't have her on the team.
And likewise, do you think you personally were better or worse off without Avery on the team?
At some things she was better, at some things I was better.
But was your position on the team changed with her gone?
Mine, no, but Taylor Perkins, before regionals even happened, Avery got kicked off of the team for another argument she had with Brackman, and Taylor dropped out. Taylor Perkins, a second best friend to Avery, dropped out so that Avery can get required to be put back. No one else knew.
I asked about your position, not Taylor Perkins's. Is it true that you received a larger role in Avery Becker's absence?
Yes.
And so shortly after she was kicked off the team was Mackenzie Brackman's murder, was it not?
Depending on which time. There were two kickoffs, but I think the one you're talking about is the second one, and yeah.
Yes. And you were called for an interview, correct?
Yes, I was.
And this interview was because of a text conversation you had had with Avery about helping her get back on the mock trial team.
Yep.
And you did not have your phone at the first interview.
Yes, I did not.
In consequence, you simply sent screenshots of those conversations to the detective.
Yes, I did.
And you never showed the detective or anyone the actual phone with the actual conversation then, did you?
No, I did not.
And yes or no, you do not have this phone any longer. And so the original text conversation?
Yeah, I got charger problems.
Now, to finish my questions, do you believe Avery Becker, your best friend, to have killed Mackenzie Brackman?
Objection. This is out of scope of the expertise of the witness.
Thank you. Defense, any response?
Yes, I am simply asking the witness his belief from his perspective, not offering it for the truth of the matter asserted.
All right, thank you. I will overrule the objection. The witness can give his essentially lay opinion. So counsel, go ahead and re-ask the question and the witness may answer.
So to finish my questions, do you believe that Avery Becker murdered your mock trial coach?
Yes.
No further questions.
All right, thank you. Given the time situation, there will be no redirect examination, and the prosecution's case has rested. From the defense, go ahead and call your first witness.
The defense would like to call Avery Becker to the stand.
All right, thank you. And will the witness please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
All right, thank you. Counselor, go ahead and begin when you're ready. Thank you.
Would you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Avery Becker, Beckerer.
And why are you at court today, Ms. Becker?
I've been unjustly accused of murdering my mock trial coach, Mr. Brackman.
Who is Mackenzie or Coach Brackman?
Would you repeat the question?
Who is Mackenzie or Coach Brackman?
Coach Brackman was my coach for mock trial. We never got along. He always was very nitpicky and wanted things in his own controlled way, when I really liked to go with the flow and be more spontaneous.
How long have you been doing mock trial?
I've done mock trial my whole time at CHS, so 4 years.
How would you describe Coach Brackman's relationship with the other members of the team?
Coach Brackman never gave any of the team members credit. He would always get down on us. He would always rewrite what we would give to him. So it's not like it was just me that had something with him. It was everyone.
Describe the incident with Coach Brackman's car.
Yes, so it was not the proudest moment in my life at all. We were reviewing what had happened at the regional tournament, and Mr. Brackman he couldn't handle not being in control, and
Speculation.
Thank you. Any response from the defense?
Your Honor, this doesn't, again, assert the truth of the matter, rather her perspective on the situation.
All right, thank you. The court will sustain the objection. Counselor, go ahead and proceed.
Where were you on the day of Coach Brackman's death?
I had lost my phone the day before, and so I was with my best friend Taylor, and we were going all around looking for it.
What do you believe happened to your cell phone that day, to the best of your knowledge?
To the best of my knowledge, I know that the last time that I remember having it was when I was with Taylor and we met some other members of the mock trial team at the Fry Shack. And I think that I accidentally left my phone there. And I think that Alex, who was there, took it.
Objection, speculation.
Thank you. Council, any response?
Just her recollection of the scene and her perspective on the scene.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Sure, go ahead, Council.
The witness cannot testify to what happened to her phone, and she is being asked to do so.
All right, thank you. For purposes of this competition, I will overrule the objection. Counselor, go ahead and proceed.
Would you like me to restate that question?
Yes, please.
What do you believe happened to yourself on that day?
I believe that I left it at the Fry Shack where Alex could take it, and I think he used it to sabotage me.
Who is Blair Rollins?
Objection, relevance.
Thank you, Counsel.
This is a direct part of the case, and it shows more of a fully put together scene for the crime and her position within this case.
All right, I will overrule the objection at this stage of the questioning. Once we get a little further, Counsel, if you want to re-raise that objection, I'll certainly give you leave to do so. Counselor, go ahead and proceed.
To restate that question, who is Blair Rollins?
Blair was another person at CHS.
And what was Blair's relationship with Coach Brackman, to the best of your knowledge?
To the best of my knowledge, I believe that Blair's family had a case in which Brackman was involved, and it did not go well.
Who is Alex Cifuentes?
Alex is another member of the mock trial team. He always did this weird thing that he thought that we were best friends, but we really weren't.
So would you say that you and Alex were very close?
Not at all. We only saw each other really during practice.
Would you please turn to Exhibit 14?
Yes.
And can I instruct the court to also turn to Exhibit 14?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Did you write these texts?
No.
And would you ever confide in Alex?
Never.
Did you have any access to Brackman's home?
No, he was my coach.
Would you please turn to Exhibit 10? And would the court please turn to Exhibit 10?
Counsel, go ahead.
Is there anyone else that might have been mistaken for you in this footage?
Looking at the footage, you can see that the person in there has a pretty average build, and you could easily mistake Blair for that person.
Objection, outside the scope of the witness's expertise.
All right, thank you. Counsel, any response?
The witness would have direct knowledge of this, as she knew Blair and she knew her own build and Blair's build.
All right, thank you. The court will sustain the objection. Counselor, go ahead and proceed.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Becker, you were on the mock trial team for 4 years.
Yes.
And Mr. Brackman was your coach.
Yes.
And there were 2 groups on your mock trial team.
Yes, the A team and the B team.
And the A team was more talented than the B team.
That's why it was called the A team.
So, of course, you were on the A team.
I was on the A team because I am gifted in mock trial.
Of course. But Mr. Brackman didn't appreciate you.
We never really understood each other.
He told you you were lazy
Yes.
and that your work ethic wasn't good enough.
Yes.
However, you were the best attorney on your team.
Yes.
You could come up with a brilliant cross-examination.
I could.
And your closing arguments had the judges wrapped around your finger.
They did.
But Mr. Brackman didn't care.
I would say that he cared too much.
All he could do was criticize and belittle you.
Yes.
And then he demoted you
Yes.
from the A team to the B team.
Yes.
And this infuriated you.
Of course, he had no reason to demote me.
You were so angry with Mr. Brackman that you defaced his white car.
Unfortunately, I did.
And then, even though you were the best attorney on your team, Mr. Brackman kicked you off.
Yes.
You spoke to your mother about the situation?
I did.
And you were angry.
Yes, mock trial is my life.
You were so angry that you told your mother you would get back at him if it was the last thing you did.
In my anger, I did say that.
I'd like to move on to your relationship with Taylor Perkins. You're best friends with Taylor Perkins?
Yes.
You've been best friends for some time now.
Yeah.
You even joined mock trial together.
Mm-hmm.
You joined in order to spend more time with them.
Yes.
But Taylor Perkins wasn't as good at mock trial as you were.
No, we weren't. We didn't have the same talent levels.
And they never enjoyed it as much.
I suppose so, but we enjoyed spending the time together and doing it together.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance?
What's the objection? Relevance?
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to confirm the objection. Counsel, go ahead and respond.
This line of questioning establishes the relationship between Avery Becker and Taylor Perkins, who is also testifying today.
All right, thank you. And any response?
Yes, but Taylor's specific aptitude for mock trial has no real pertinence in this case.
All right, thank you. The court will overrule the objection. Counselor, go ahead and proceed.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. When you, Ms. Becker, were demoted to the B team, Taylor Perkins dropped out for you.
Like a true best friend.
They sacrificed their own hard work for you.
I guess you could say so.
And then you went to the Fry Shack.
Yes.
With Taylor Perkins.
Yes.
Where you lost your phone.
Yes.
You lost your phone on the evening of March 5th.
Yes.
And you did not notice that your phone was missing until the morning of March 6th.
Yes.
And then on March 6th, you went to search for it.
Yes.
With Taylor Perkins.
Yes.
You spent the entire day searching for your phone.
We couldn't find it.
And so you were not in attendance at school on March 6th of 2020.
No, we decided to skip school.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect examination?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. To the witness, you are released from testimony today. You can go ahead and go about your day. Or I'm sorry, you're the defendant. I guess you have to stay. Can the defense call their next witness, please?
I would like to call Taylor Perkins to the stand.
All right, thank you. To the witness, can you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give today is the truth, the whole truth, or nothing but the truth?
Do.
All right, thank you. Counselor, go ahead and proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Miss Perkins, can you state your full name and spell your last for the record, please?
Taylor Perkins, Perkins.
Thank you. And why are you here today, Miss Perkins?
I'm here for the unjust accusation of Avery Becker. I'm here to prove her innocence.
Who is Avery?
She's the defendant.
Now, you say you need to prove Avery's innocence. Do you have a close relationship to the defendant?
Of course. She's my best friend. And she's the only reason I joined mock trial in the first place.
So, seeing as you and Avery are best friends, how well would you say you communicate?
Perfectly. We tell each other everything.
Everything. So, you would say from your own experience that you have a good idea of Avery's character.
Yeah, I definitely do. Avery was egotistical, but she cared about mock trial more than that.
Okay, so Avery was on the mock trial team with you. How did she perform?
She was amazing. She even won best closing statement last year in the tournament. And well, even though she came unprepared at times, she was still the best person on our entire team. She was a genius.
So, would you say that someone as intelligent as Miss Becker and familiar with the court system because of her participation in mock trial would commit a crime as risky as murder?
Objection, ultimate issue.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the objection, please?
Objection, ultimate issue.
All right, thank you, counsel. Any response?
I ask that the prosecution expand upon their objection.
Your Honor, briefly, expert witnesses are the only witnesses allowed to testify to the ultimate issue of the case, which is essentially the conclusion, what the jury is supposed to take away. And the previous question asks is exactly that.
All right, thank you. And counsel, any response to that?
Your Honor, I would counter the prosecution's objection by saying that Taylor Perkins, in fact, does have enough expertise not to qualify for an expert witness, but to express her own opinion on what she believed happened. And this is asked only for the opinion of the witness herself, not to support the actual outcome of the case. I merely want to give the jury an idea of Taylor's idea of Avery rather than propose this as an incentive to acquit the defendant.
All right, thank you, counsel. Well argued on both sides. I am going to sustain the objection. Counsel, go ahead and move on.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, moving on. Speaking of mock trial, it appears from your witness statement that Avery and Coach Brackman had a bit of a rivalry. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, most of it was petty arguments that honestly were really funny to me. But there were times where Brackman was just completely immature and Avery had to stand up for herself.
And what did the interactions between Avery and Coach Brackman look like regularly?
He was always criticizing her for something. It was like no matter how well she performed, he just hated it.
And did Avery ever retaliate to these criticisms?
She did once. It was during a meeting that they had a horrible argument. He just ripped into her. And as you'd expect, she walked away angry. She took a marker and decided to write Worst Attorney Award on his Porsche. She, however, thought it was a dry erase marker, but found out that it was a permanent marker.
I see. And from your observations and conversations with Avery, how did it appear that she felt about this decision that she made?
She felt horrible about it. She apologized to him, to Brackman, so many times, but he wasn't having it. So she ended up getting kicked off the team.
Okay. And Ms. Perkins, it says in your testimony, as well as that of the defendant, that you two were together on the day of and the day before the murder. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what were you and the defendant doing during that time?
The day before, we were just hanging out at my house, and then we decided to go to the fry shack in the mall.
Okay, and did anything strange happen the day before the murder?
Well, when we got to the fry shack, we noticed that the rest of the mock trial was there too. So we went over and just started talking, and a lot of them were super upset about Avery being kicked off the team. I mean, who wouldn't be? She was the best. But Alex Cifuentes was not concerned at all. He wasn't sincere. He did not care that much about Avery. And then, well, she had to go to the bathroom, and so she left her phone on the table, and
Objection, narrative.
we decided to leave.
Narrative, was that correct?
Narrative, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Counselor, any response?
I ask yet again that the prosecution expand upon their objection.
All right, thank you. From the prosecution, go ahead.
Your Honor, objection narrative is used when a witness has answered the question and has now gone on a long ramble about other things without the attorney asking another question about that.
All right, thank you. And Counselor, any response?
Your Honor, I believe that there is still relevant information that the witness would like to say, and I don't believe it is within the prosecution's expertise to say whether or not the witness has finished in expressing what they believe needs to be said.
Your Honor.
Well, I'm sorry. Do you have any further reply? Go ahead, sir.
Yes, Your Honor. I completely agree with the prosecution. However, the prosecution should ask specific questions in order to direct the jury's attention to what specifically they want to draw from the witness.
All right, thank you. I am going to overrule the objection, but Counselor, it was pushing it a little bit. So if you can, please make sure that you're asking some questions and directing the witness a little bit more. All right.
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead and proceed.
All right, I'll get a little bit more specific for you, Ms. Perkins. You say in your testimony that Miss Becker's phone went missing. Can you expand upon what happened?
Well, she got up to go to the bathroom because she was pretty upset that we were bringing up her being kicked off again. And when she came back, we decided that it was just time to leave. And after that, we found out that her phone wasn't with her anymore.
When did you realize, or when did Avery realize and speak to you about her phone being missing?
I believe it was by the time we had already left the fry shack, and she came and picked me up. She came to bring me to school the next day, but we decided that since we had that first period off, that we would go and look for her phone instead.
So this was the day after you visited the fry shack, the day of the murder?
Yes.
Yes. All right. And you spent the remainder of the day looking for the phone?
Yes, I kept calling it, seeing if we could find it, but we couldn't.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. All right. I'd like to start with some of your background. You were on the mock trial team.
Yes, I was, but only because Avery was on the team as well, and I wanted to hang out with her.
At Colorado High School?
Yes.
You know Avery Becker.
Yes, I do. She's my best friend.
You and the defendant were very close.
Yes.
You still are.
Yes.
You and the defendant are good friends.
That we are.
If the defendant didn't do mock trial, you wouldn't have done it either.
Probably not, no.
Your coach was Mr. Brackman.
Yes.
You thought Mr. Brackman was a mediocre coach.
Definitely.
You thought he was an even worse lawyer.
Yes.
That year at regionals, the defendant won many mock trial awards. Is that correct?
Yep, and she deserved every one of them.
The defendant and Mr. Brackman argued often about it.
That they did.
These arguments could get heated.
They could at times. Most of the time, though, they were just petty and kind of funny.
They often boiled over.
I would say so.
The defendant sometimes arrived at mock trial unprepared.
Yeah, I mean, she would, but she was the best on the team. Even unprepared, she was
So
great.
that's a yes.
Yes.
Thank you. The defendant sometimes delayed doing their work
Yes.
and would be late to practice.
Yes.
The defendant would even pull pranks on Mr. Brackman.
Yes, she would.
So it'd be fair to say that Mr. Brackman did not like the defendant.
I would say so, yeah.
And once again, you said the defendant, Mr. Brackman, argued often.
They did.
One argument, Mr. Brackman demoted Avery Becker to the B team.
That he did. Totally unfair.
The B team was the less skilled team.
Yes.
You offered the defendant your spot on the team.
I suppose you could say that.
That year, Mr. Brackman asserted that the defendant didn't deserve the awards that they received in mock trial.
Yes.
That was in a meeting after the competition.
Yes.
The defendant was furious.
Rightfully so, yes.
The defendant stormed out of the room
Yes.
with a permanent marker
Yes.
and vandalized Mr. Brackman's car,
She did.
a Porsche 911.
Yes.
The defendant wrote Worst Attorney Award on the hood.
She did.
So Mr. Brackman kicked the defendant off the team.
That he did.
That's understandable. I'd like to move to the time just after the defendant was kicked off the team. You and the defendant texted everyone on the team to see if the defendant could get back on.
Yes, we did.
Even Alex Cifuentes?
Yeah. Yes.
You and the defendant didn't like Alex Cifuentes.
No, we didn't. He was a jerk.
But you both asked Mr. Cifuentes anyway.
Yes.
You found out that Mr. Brackman was still angry at the defendant.
Yes, we did.
So on March 5th, you and the defendant visited the Fry Shack.
We did.
Some members of the mock trial team showed up.
They did.
Alex Cifuentes was one of them.
He was.
Avery Becker left for the bathroom.
She did.
She left her phone on the table.
I believe she did, yes.
And then you two left.
That we did.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions. Thank you. Counsel, any redirect examination?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. To the witness, you are free to go about your day. Thank you. And will the defense call their next witness, please?
Yes, Your Honor. I call Professor Blake Van Owen to the stand.
All right, thank you. Professor, can you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. Counselor, go ahead.
Now, Miss Van Owen, can you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
Blake Von Owen, O-W-E-N.
And can you explain your job, Professor?
I'm a private investigator, a professor, and an expert witness. I did work at the Aurora Police Station, but left under extenuous circumstances. I then became a school officer, a private security guard, and then went into public and private investigation. I've studied and taught social justice and police policies for 5 years now.
And what is your experience being an expert witness?
I've been an expert defense witness in Colorado, Arizona, and Nebraska, and an expert defense witness in different districts of Colorado, New Mexico, Nebraska, and Wyoming.
Now, Your Honor, at this time, I move that the court recognize Professor Blake Van Owen as an expert witness in the fields of crime scene reconstruction, cell tower analysis, and general police investigation tactics.
All right, thank you. Any from the prosecution?
None, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. I will accept the witness as an expert in the proffered fields. Counselor, go ahead and continue.
Thank you. So to begin, what have you reviewed pertaining to this case?
I've reviewed the police reports, the crime scene reconstruction by Kyle Kuzak, and the cell tower reports by Detective Markowitz.
And what is your expert opinion on the reports you reviewed?
Personally, I'm unsatisfied with the evidence given on all of these parts, with the data cell towers and how they haven't been looked into enough, the lost images from Kyle Kuzak, the lack of investigation of Alex Cifuentes' snapshots, and the rushed conclusion of the entire case. It's all less than satisfactory, and I wish that there had been more effort put into it.
And why don't you tell us more about that, beginning with Mr. Kuzak's reconstruction of the crime scene?
Kyle Kuzak believes that an intruder by himself or herself stabbed Brackman with a knife after a struggle, the knife being obtained by Brackman from the knife holder in the kitchen.
And what does the physical evidence show us?
The physical evidence of the scuff marks and the knife and the body all have a little bit of truth where Kuzak lies. However, the scuff and skid marks, the scuffle from the skid marks can be at any time, any point of day, and you can't date them. Therefore, it's not proper to assume that the skid marks were from that one night. The position of the wound on the body itself also goes against a lot of the information and the belief that of Kyle Kuzak.
And also, can you tell us about the murder weapon, the knife?
So Kyle Kuzak believes that the knife was obtained from the kitchen block, the block of knives. However, the knife does not match the other knives in the kitchen block. Also, the knife and the position that it had fallen does not match in the way that it must have been held. Knives are made to be held in a certain way, and if it had fallen that way, then it had not. As well as the position of the knife in Mr. Brackman. He must have been sitting down at the time for the knife to have been hit at this part that it did in his left shoulder. It had to have been hit above and in order to be hitting the aorta.
And well, moving from the weapon to its wielder, what can you say about the intruder who killed Mr. Brackman?
Yes, on that same point, the wielder must have been bigger than Mr. Brackman in order to have hit the point on his back. However, from the videos we have seen today, the intruder was obviously small. So we can take from that evidence that Mr. Brackman had been sitting down and the intruder stabbed him from behind while sitting.
And on the subject of this video, the ring video, what opinion do you have on Detective Markowitz's analysis?
Detective Markowitz looked at the ring notifications, but did not ever think to collect the history of the notifications and whether or not the notifications had been muted by Brackman, whether they had been ignored or even acknowledged. So with this flimsy evidence that we have been given, it's almost impossible to decide if Brackman had seen the notifications, if he had acknowledged the notifications, if he had muted the notifications. Therefore, the ring video is not good evidence.
And using your expert opinion on both the police procedure and cell tower analysis, what is all of the evidence concerning Avery Becker's phone?
Avery Becker claims that she lost her phone previously, and the cell tower analysis says that the phone was in the vicinity of the Brackman area and on the main road. There is no correlation between Avery Becker and her phone being together at that point of time. It could have been stolen and taken somewhere. It could have been, she could have lost it as well. There is no tie with Avery, and her phone being together at that same point.
So how credible is the evidence linking Avery's phone to the scene of the crime?
According to Detective Markowitz's evidence, there can be no reliable evidence of Avery and the crime scene. If her phone was by the crime scene, it wasn't necessarily Avery who did the crime.
And what conclusions can you make from this information, just to clarify?
That Avery was not necessarily at the crime scene. And in fact, even if her phone was, cell towers aren't specific as to where the phones are. Therefore, the phone could have been in any 6 to 7 mile radius of the cell tower, and doesn't necessarily mean that it was at Mr. Brackman's house. It could have been also at the mall.
And do you have any further objections to the procedure of the investigation?
All in all, the motive of crimes is very important, especially in this one. Avery Becker doesn't seem to have a great motive. She had frustrations with Brackman in an argument, but she didn't have a motive that was enough to kill someone. However, thank you.
Well, is there any evidence that you would like to bring to the jury's attention that might have been overlooked concerning motive?
I would like to bring the attention to exhibit.
Objection vague.
You said objection vague?
Yeah, vague.
All right, thank you. And Counselor, any response?
Well, I'm simply asking if there is anything that Professor Van Owen found personally concerning this case, any evidence?
All right, thank you. Overrule the objection. Counselor, go ahead and continue.
So is there any evidence you would like to bring to the jury's attention that might have pertinence to this case?
Mm-hmm. As a private investigator, I also looked through the different people that Avery would interact with and that Mr. Brackman would interact with. And I came across a case of Jonathan Rawlings. If you would please look at Exhibit 22. It is an audio of his case. Jonathan Rawlings was accused of murder and Brackman was his lawyer. Blair Rowlands, Jonathan Rowlands' son, was there on the court day. Unfortunately, Jonathan Rowlands, the evidence went against him and he was sent away to prison for life. Before going to prison, Jonathan Rawlings, the father of Blair Rowlings.
Narrative.
Counsel, any response to the narrative objection?
No response. I think this was good.
All right, I will sustain the objection. Counselor, if you can please just make sure that you are framing the witness's testimony a little more specifically, just so that we don't get too off track. So Counselor, go ahead and continue.
Yes, Your Honor. So did you look further? You just explained the specifics of this case. And so what is your general opinion of the investigation of this case?
Personally, I think that the evidence and the deciding factors of this case were rushed. The evidence that Kyle Kuzak and Detective Markowitz present to us are faulty and unreliable. There could have been many other options, and it seems that Detective Markowitz made a hasty decision and then fed that idea into Kyle Kuzak's ear. And here we see a one-way lane that could have taken many other courses through it. The lack of organization in the evidence and the unprofessional behavior after losing the pictures, after not investigating the screenshots more, all lead to a iffy case. Nobody could know for sure. It was rushed and faulty.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Counselor, any cross-examination, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Professor Van Owen, you used to be a police officer
Yes, sir.
for the Aurora Police Department,
Yes.
and you injured a young woman,
Yes.
a young woman of color,
Yes, sir.
during an arrest.
Yes.
And after that, you left the police department.
Yes.
And after that incident, you have only testified for the defense,
Yes.
which is nearly always against the police.
Yes.
And you consider yourself a check on the power of the police.
Yes, sir.
And you reviewed the police reports and the crime scene reconstruction report.
Yes.
You looked at the cell tower reports
Yes.
and the exhibits,
Yes.
but you yourself only conducted a partial investigation.
After looking in depth to all of the other evidence, yes.
Though you say you disagree with the police,
Yes.
who conducted a full investigation.
Yes.
Let's take a look at your observations. You agree Avery's cell phone was communicating with the cell tower near Mr. Brackman's home.
Yes.
So the phone was near the victim's residence
Yes.
during the time the murder took place.
Yes.
And you say it would have been better to maintain cell tower records from the day before
Yes.
in order to confirm what Avery Becker claims.
Yes.
But you didn't obtain these cell records.
No, I did not.
You claim that the police should have investigated more suspects,
Yes.
but you yourself didn't take the time to investigate anybody else.
I looked into Blair Rolling's case.
Did you speak with Blair Rollins?
No.
Thank you. You also claim that screenshots are not a reliable piece of evidence,
Yes.
and that it is much better to perform a thorough search of the actual phone.
Yes.
And you claim the police were lazy
Yes.
because they didn't obtain Alex Cifuentes' phone.
Yes.
But you never obtained the phone either.
As an expert witness, it was not my job to look into it. It was Detective Markowitz's job.
But it would have helped to prove the truth of the matter.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect examination?
A brief one, Your Honor. Professor Owen, do you believe that the police reports indicate a full investigation of the crime?
I think that they say that they did, but it was very one-sided. They didn't look into other ideas. They didn't look into other suspects. They only went for Avery Becker.
And furthermore, do you believe that your investigation added on to the scope of the evidence?
Could you please rephrase your question?
Yes. Do you believe that your further investigations provide more evidence that the police overlooked?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Professor, your testimony today is complete. You are free to go about your day. Thank you. Does the defense have any further witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Does the defense rest at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. The evidence in this proceeding is now complete, and we will proceed to closing arguments from the prosecution. you may present your closing argument. Thank you, Counselor. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. No accountability. That is what this case revolves around. Accountability or the lack thereof. Many people have tried to hold Avery Becker accountable. All have failed. And that ends today. This case hinges around two main facts. First, that someone broke into Mr. Brackman's house, struggled, and eventually stabbed him. And second, that that person was Avery Becker. The defense, however, would have you believe a different story. They would have you believe Detective Van Owen. Detective Van Owen, who is not a certified investigator, who did not walk a single inch of the crime scene. They would have you believe Detective Van Owen, who took the fair and accurate investigation of police investigators, analyzed them, and came up with a different conclusion. They would have you believe Taylor Perkins. Taylor Perkins, who dropped out of mock trial so that Avery Becker could stay in, who is essentially Avery Becker's sidekick. They would have you believe Taylor Perkins, who took the fall for Avery Becker once and would do it again. And finally, they would have you believe Avery Becker. Avery Becker, who claims to have not had her phone on the day of March 6th. That same phone that was like a third kidney, like another organ, like a third limb. The defense would have you believe that at not one time between the fry shack and the next morning did Avery Becker take her hand, reach down to her pocket, and feel that her phone was missing. Do not believe them. Believe instead Detectives Jordan Markowitz and Detective Kyle Kuzak. These detectives, they conducted a thorough and complete investigation of the crime scene. They organized the chain of events and the evidence in a clear and concise manner. Believe Detectives Kyle Kuzak and Jordan Markowitz, who have almost 30 years of combined experience in crime scene investigation. Finally, believe Alex Cifuentes. Alex Cifuentes, who testified as to the bias and motive of Avery Becker, who was at the front lines at the struggle between Mr. Brackman and Avery Becker. Believe Alex Cifuentes, who was the one who told you, and to quote Avery Becker directly, "If Brackman was upset about what I did to his car, wait till he sees what I do to his house." Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, many people have tried to hold Avery Becker accountable. Coach Brackman was the last one. Coach Brackman expected respect, hard work, and accountability from Avery Becker, and he got none. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you must find Avery Becker guilty.
All right, thank you, Counselor. And from the defense, any closing argument, go ahead and proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the opposing counsel has efficiently told you their facts, their story. They ask that you follow the path they have set and find the young girl, Avery Becker, guilty of the weighty crimes of burglary and murder. My co-counsel and I stand on the principles of complete truth and justice, however, and have provided to you the facts, all of them, and ask you to decide the story. We do not lay a path out for you to encourage you to take a narrow-minded adherence to said path. No, the case we have today is no single path. It is a spider web of evidence. To ignore any evidence in making your conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, would be to violate your duty as jurors. Opposing counsel holds the burden of proof and has furthermore failed to present sufficient evidence required to prove beyond any reasonable doubt that my client is guilty. Firstly, I ask you to consider the possible motives of all the people involved in this case. I admit, and Avery herself admits, that she was not fond of her mock trial coach, Mackenzie Brackman. However, Have you not seen evidence supporting the fact that she was away from the scene of the crime, searching for her lost phone with her friend Taylor Perkins? Furthermore, there are other people with other motives involved. Alex Cifuentes claims to be close to Avery, good friends, yet both Taylor Perkins and Avery herself have claimed the opposite. Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot simply choose to accept Mr. Cifuentes' word over my client's. Alex, with her possible bad relationship with the defendant, with his possible, bad relationship with the defendant, has also the possible motive to frame Avery for a crime she did not commit. Both possibilities are not to be overlooked. Another person with a substantial motive in committing the crime herself, Blair Rollins, is not even present here today. To have one's father convicted, fueling one to revenge, is at least worth investigation, if not a much stronger and much likelier motive to such a weighty crime as murder. This, ladies and gentlemen, can be explained by the inadequacy of both Detective Jordan Markowitz and Kyle Kuzak's investigations. Evidence has been ignored, lost, and unjustly connected to wrongfully condemn Avery Becker. You heard from Blake Van Owen, the two investigators' failure to consider all the evidence and their failure to find the whole story. Furthermore, you heard from Taylor Perkins, evidence to show that Avery Becker lacked motive and so was incapable of committing the crime. Close friend to Avery, Taylor gave you all a testimony that highlights the guilt Avery felt after ruining her coach's car in her attempts to rectify her mistake of anger. How can one who feels the guilt of vandalism hold themselves together with the guilt of such a substantial crime as murder? Avery was, as well, only shows motive to returning to the mock trial team, not committing any crimes. Ladies and gentlemen, you must be convinced beyond any reasonable doubt that Avery committed the crime of murder in the first degree and second degree burglary in order to find her guilty. If the web of evidence does not prove to you definitely of my client's guilt, it is your duty to find her innocent. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And from the prosecution, any rebuttal argument, please?
Yes, Your Honor. May I ask how much time I have remaining?
Timekeepers.
You have 1 minute and 43 seconds for your rebuttal.
Thank you. The defense has said that they have a spider web of bright path. And yes, they have in fact laid out a spider web of confusion and of false facts. They want to confuse and befuddle you with red herrings and strange and excited facts. Do not believe them. We, the prosecution, have proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that Avery Becker is guilty in this case. We have proved that Avery Becker was at Mr. Brackman's house, and we have proved that Avery Becker intended to burglarize and vandalize the house. Do not believe the defense. They would confuse you with multiple false facts and different stories. You've heard from Blake Van Owen. You hear the defense say that our detectives didn't collect enough evidence. And if that's the case, then why didn't Detective Blake Van Owen collect that evidence? She said it was because it's not her job. But that's not the case, is it? Her duty is to find the truth, not to testify for the defense. And her bias is very clear. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, do hold Avery Becker accountable. Mr. Brackman couldn't, but you can. Please find Avery Becker guilty.
All right, thank you, Counselor. This proceeding is now concluded. All right, I just want to state just briefly again, I'm always so excited when this time of year comes around. I always enjoy participating in the Colorado High School mock trial competition. think actually, if I recall correctly, I think some of the team members that were present today, I think I recall seeing some of you at the last time I presided over one of these competitions. It's really always so fun for me to see just how talented you all are, how hard you work throughout this process. And for those of you I had the opportunity and privilege to see last year, it was really actually kind of a treat for me to see, you guys blew me away last year, and it was kind of a treat for me to see just how much you've continued to improve, continue to work hard, and continue to really put a lot of time and effort into it. I know that I probably someday will see a few of you appearing before me, and I very much look forward to that day when I can greet you as attorneys. So thank you all for letting me participate today, and thank you so much.